Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. First, I'm going to start by saying thank you for all your guys' support on the recent Nowcast video. They did the 1st December Nowcast video. That video absolutely took off, even more than the first one I did. And we got 2,000 subscribers off of that video alone. So we're up to over 3,000 subscribers now. Just the channel's gone stratospheric. Thank you so much. I still know that 90% of you who watch the videos haven't subscribed yet, so please, if you haven't subscribed and you want to follow British politics, I guarantee you there's no other YouTube channel doing stuff like this. So hit the subscribe button now and get involved in the channel, get involved in the comments. I do like hearing all of your perspectives down there in the comments. But this is a by-election video, a by-election preview video, and this week we've got 6, all in England this week. And if you run your eye down the council's list there that are up for by-election this week, you will see, if you've been watching the channel, if you're clued in, you will know that these are areas of significant reform momentum at the moment. So it is going to be another fairly reform-centric video because they are the story in British politics at the moment. Like I said the other day, they are the ones that are grabbing all the headlines, and they have the momentum. So we'll see if they can turn some of that momentum, the headlines, the polling numbers, into real electoral gains here this week. So we're going to start in Yorkshire. I'll start in Barnsley. Barnsley Council has a ward up for by-election. Now, the ward actually falls just outside of Barnsley's own constituencies. Penistone and Stocksbridge constituency, just to the west of Barnsley, the two Barnsley constituencies there. This is where that ward falls. And you can see Reform here are doing very well. Now, of course, public announcement, public safety announcement, parliamentary polling, Nowcast polling for Westminster seats is not a good proxy, not a perfect proxy for local election voting. However, I think we can take some cues from how things are going, and that's why I use this to inform our thinking on local election, by-elections and stuff. So, Reform are doing quite well. They're just under 8% behind Labour here. Now, it's a bit different in this constituency. You can see in 2019 that Conservatives did actually win this one. So this has been a battleground in the last 4 or 5 years. Unlike some of the other ones we've been looking at on the Nowcast, where they've been Labour strongholds for a very long time. But still, Reform are doing very well. They're ahead of the Conservatives, and they're 8% behind Labour. Now, there is another factor to consider here in Dodsworth. Dodworth Ward, sorry, is a Liberal Democrat area. 3 councillors for this ward, all 3 of them are Liberal Democrats. Sam Christmas is the councillor standing down for personal reasons, and you can see he won the election in 2023 fairly comfortably. So, can Reform win in a Liberal Democrat ward? Well, that's a very good question. I think quite possibly not. However, turnout will be lower for a by-election. If the Liberal Democrat voters don't turn out, that might help Reform. But also the Liberal Democrats are notoriously very good campaigners, very good at motivating their vote. So, look, I'm not writing Reform off winning this, but it may be a bit of a big ask if it's a Lib Dem ward. That said, I've seen a lot on social media about various Reform accounts pushing this by-election, so they are, I think, quite keen for it. So I wouldn't write them off. But what I think in the grander picture of that area of the country, if we go back to the Nowcast here, the grander picture in terms of this polling would be Reform beating Labour into second place. If Labour's vote share collapses like we've seen it has done elsewhere in the country, and Reform can be the beneficiaries of that and leapfrog Labour into second and be a strong second, I think that's a win for Reform, and I think that's quite indicative, quite instructive of what's happening in this part of the country and Labour's woes, really, in this part of the country. So I think that would be a good night for Reform. Now, also in Yorkshire, we go to the other side of Barnsley. Wakefield Council also has a seat up for by-election. It's another one where actually the ward is just outside of Wakefield's own constituency, and it falls in Normanton and Hemsworth. So you can see here, Reform are doing even better. They're only 2% behind Labour here, and this indeed is one of those stronghold heartland areas that shouldn't be a battleground. It was held in 2019, even under Jeremy Corbyn. this shouldn't be a battleground. Reform have made it a battleground. You can see there they've surged up in the polls, 8.5% since July. Labour's vote has collapsed by 8% almost. So all that Labour vote going to Reform, that's really bad news for Labour. Now let's look at Wakefield. So this is the election result from 2023. Just go to the right-hand column there of your eyes vote share, 73% for the Labour councillor previously. Now that's a huge share of the vote. But we have seen in Sefton, which is near Liverpool, and in Cardiff last week, huge Labour majorities, huge shares of the vote for Labour be collapsing 30%. Now they won both of those. So it may well be that the vote, the lead is so great that they can absorb, and again, absorb a big hit to the vote share and stay out in front and win. However, if Reform can overturn a lead like this, that will be absolutely huge for them. You know, we speak a lot on this channel about Reform needing to convince voters, the millions of voters who didn't vote in the 2024 general election. They need to convince those people that we can actually win. That needs to be the signal that goes out. It's not just a protest vote. You're not throwing your vote away if you vote for us. We can actually win. And overturning a huge majority like this would be a very good step on that path. Now, look, I'm not going to say it's unlikely, because I think absolutely phenomenal things are happening in British politics at the moment. I think the sands are very much shifting under the two main parties, and I do think we're at a very transitional moment in British politics. How would that work? Well, Labour would need to lose at least 30% of the vote to take them down to 43%, if not more. So that alone would be huge. Absolutely a huge drop in their support. But like I say, we have seen that. We've seen that in two councils in the last few weeks. So that is not at all impossible. Reform would need to come from a standing start, having never stood here before. They would need to come from a standing start to essentially 45% of the vote, I think, to win. That is a huge ask. That is a huge ask. So I think, again, a good night for Reform would be pushing Labour close. If they can come within a few percent of winning, I think that's a very, very good night for them. If they can actually win, I think that's an outstanding night for them. And there's more on this sort of theme, but against the Tories a bit later on. So yeah, I think that would be an incredible result for Reform. Staying up in the north, we'll move across to the northwest. St Helens, so just outside of Liverpool, just to the east of Liverpool. St Helens. We'll go and look at the nowcast for St Helens, which is here. St Helens North is the constituency within which Blackbrook ward falls. Now here, look, Labour are much safer here. This is a very Labour safe, still very Labour safe area of the country. They're ahead by 14% of Reform in second, so Reform are doing quite well here. If we look at the results for Blackbrook, we can see Labour won it very convincingly in 2022. But interestingly in this one, the Greens finished in second. Now, of course, there was no Reform standing here previously, but the Greens finished in second. Now, I think there are two types of Labour voters who may decide to vote elsewhere. One type of Labour voter who might decide to defect away from the Labour Party might go and vote for the Greens. Or if they're in Scotland, they might go and vote for the SNP. Or if they're in Wales, they might go and vote for Plaid Cymru. Then there's the Labour voter who might defect away from Labour and go and vote for Reform. Those two people are not the same. They have very different philosophies, they have very different ideologies. So the fact that the Green Party finished in second, a very distant second, but finished in second 2 years ago, I wonder if when we see that drop in Labour support, which I think we probably will see again, will it benefit the Greens more than Reform? Now, I don't know. It's like I say, Reform haven't stood here, so it's a bit of an unknown quantity. Don't be fooled by the fact that Conservatives finished bottom, because Reform voters are no longer simply just Conservative voters. There are now plenty of ex-Labour voters voting for Reform too. That's why Reform are being put under so much pressure in Greater Manchester, Yorkshire and the North East. So don't be fooled into thinking Reform don't have a hope here. Again, it's a huge Labour majority. I wonder if, because the Greens finished second here before, it's maybe just a very, well, it is in fact a very left wing part of the country up in that northwestern area around Merseyside. So perhaps the Greens will benefit more, but we'll see. Reform are polling second, as we just saw. Reform are second in the polling. They're 15% behind, but they are second. They're ahead of the Greens, who are on 9%. So perhaps Reform do have some fertile ground here. I don't know. I think a good result here for Reform would be just taking a big chunk of Labour's vote. Again, same as elsewhere. I don't know if they have a chance of winning here. I certainly think they got more hope in Wakefield and then Barnsley than they do in St Helens. But look, who knows? We'll keep an eye on it. We'll see if the Greens benefit more or if Reform benefit more. Right, now we're going to go and look at where the Reform Party can hamper and hurt the Tories this week. But first, I want to go and look at Runnymede and Weybridge. Or that's the constituency. It's Ottershaw ward in on Runnymede Council. Look, this is an independent, this one. So again, there's the independent councillor has passed away. Therefore, there's a by-election, and there is an independent standing again. Now, they're called independents, but they're part of a sort of a residents' association sort of thing. So they are, to some extent, kind of organised. So that adds in a little bit of the element of the unknown, because I don't have the local knowledge to know about this. Reform are standing. They have a very good candidate. If you followed the election in the general election, you may well have seen their candidate. He did quite a lot of stuff on social media. I might be pronouncing his name wrong, but his name is Mayoran Senthilnathan. He did a lot of things on social media, like I say. So he's a good candidate, but I wonder if this is just a part of the world where Reform are not going to do particularly well. I don't think it's their target demographic necessarily. If we look at the polling at the moment, this is the Nowcast. Look, it's a safe Tory seat. They even won it in 2024. They're 20% ahead now. Reform are polling decently, up with about a fifth of the vote, but they're behind the Lib Dems, which is what makes me think, is this just an area where they're up against it? So maybe not an area fertile, and maybe not a fertile ground for them. If they can do quite well, I think that would be quite indicative of just how much momentum they have right now. But I'm not sure they can do too much here. I actually wouldn't be at all surprised if the independent who's standing wins. You can see this independent won pretty comfortably in 2022, I think it was, or 2023. So yeah, look, it may well be the independent wins. If not, I would lean towards the Conservatives winning this back between those two. But we'll keep an eye and see just how well Reform do. But as I was saying, where Reform I think can hurt the Tories this week will be in Essex. Essex County Council ward, Stock Division or Stock Ward up for by-election here. Now, just look, if we look at this here, again, it's similar. It's essentially the same story as what we saw already in Wakefield for Labour, but this time for the Conservatives. 70% of the vote the Conservative candidate got in 2021. That's a huge margin of victory. The margin of victory, in fact, is 60% over the nearest challenger. Reform are standing here. Look, Essex is an area where Reform had the most electoral success this year. You know, they won Clacton with Nigel Farage. They won South Basildon and East Thurrock with James McMurdoch. As we looked at the other day, the current Nowcast has them also winning Basildon and Billericay off of Richard Holden. So this is probably Essex and Kent and Norfolk, really, this entire East Anglia South East region is the tete-a-tete of Reform against the Conservatives. However, Essex probably did hold up the best for the Tories in 2024 than most other counties, probably outside of maybe Lincolnshire and North Yorkshire. So, look, the Stock Division falls within Malden constituency here. Reform are doing not too badly. They're 8% behind. They're gaining on the Tories. They've increased by about 7%. The Tories are up by just over 1%. So they are gaining ground on the Tories here. But again, it's very much the same narrative as what we had in Wakefield. Just a huge majority to overturn. And the difference is with the Tories is the Tories haven't seen the same polling collapse that Labour have. That said, 2 or 3 weeks ago, if you were a subscriber to the channel then, an OG, the Tories did see their vote share collapse in Kent when Reform won 2 council spots, one in Dartford Borough Council and one in Kent County Council. That week, the Tories did see their vote share collapse, and I believe if I'm right in remembering, they finished last in one of those, and their vote got entirely cannibalised by Reform. So if Reform can repeat that trick in Essex, Reform will win this seat. And it will be an extraordinary result. Now, I know they're gunning for this as well. Nigel Farage has been on the ground in Essex campaigning with the candidate. They are gunning for this hard. I think they feel that they're in a good place. It would be an absolutely extraordinary result, but I think they fancy their chances. Again, it's almost like a win-win situation for Reform. If they don't win, but they come close, that will in itself be a win for them in terms of the morale. With Essex County Council as well coming up is going to be elected next May as well. So yeah, look, this is going to be a huge night for Reform. If they can win Wakefield and Essex, I think that's going to be a huge night for them. If they can come close in both of those and push Labour and the Tories and be a close second, I think that will be a good night for them. A bad night for them would be not really being in either race and finishing behind Labour and Barnsley. I think that would be a really bad night for Reform. I don't see that happening. We haven't really seen, Reform currently just have all the momentum with them. They're in the news all the time. They're getting very good polling numbers, and yeah, look, it could be a huge night for Reform. There will be a results video here on Friday, of course, so make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss it. Before I finish the video, because I won't, there is one more, I won't cheese you. Chelmsford City Council is also up for election. The same man has passed away. He had both seats. Reform not standing in this one. Now you can see here, this man got 1,000 votes in 2023. His Conservative Party colleague down here on the fourth on the list got 938. The closest challenger was the Lib Dems at 221. I think the Tories will win this. Even in 2023, the Tories by that point were not particularly popular. This was the wrong side of the Boris Johnson resignation, the Liz Truss premiership. So the Tories weren't particularly popular then, and they still absolutely crushed it. So I think without Reform standing, the Conservative Party will retain their seat on Chelmsford City Council. But that is it. That is all the by-elections for this week. As I've just mentioned, there will be a results video on Friday. It could be very eye-opening. We will see and watch with interest how Reform perform in those areas we've looked at today. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you on Friday for the results video.